So I'm here to talk about a project we worked on with Memento for probably the last 8 or 9 months or so. So everything you're going to be seeing on the screen here is stuff that we did in the last 8 months, 9 months or so, from conception to production. So really, about August of last year, we got together and said, we got to start getting into the personalization game, the recommendation game, and we wanted to dip our toes and build a product that provided a personalized feed of our content to our users. So we met, put some plans, and quickly started putting some prototypes together. So first thing we learned and first challenge we faced is the fan expectation has changed. I'm not going to read the slides line by line. You guys can read it and digest it, and I'll just provide some commentary here. But quickly we learned that one of our biggest challenges right away was our audience, our core audience. So we were not dealing with an average feed of content to average people. Our challenge was, before we got technical, we had to really understand who we're building this feed and this product for. Our biggest issue coming out of the gate was our users are very passionate. We have a sports fan base, and that's a sports product we're building. Sports users are a little different than the average bear. All right, so let's do a quick exercise, right? So you get to kind of get where I'm at. Let's do a quick exercise. Work with me for a second here. Put together in your mind the mental image of what you think the average sports fan is. Take a second and make an image in your head of what you think an average sports fan is, right? You guys got the picture in your head now? Cool. Whatever you have in your head, multiply it by 100. Right. These are people, our average fan base, our average user is the kind of person who wears their team jerseys every day or every other day, right? They got their favorite team decal on the bumper sticker of their car. When you have a Zoom meeting with them, their background is, you see the memorabilia on the bookshelf, the helmets, the posters, you get the idea, right? So these are the kind of passionate sports people we're dealing with. So to give you an analogy, let's say, is anybody here from Netflix? All right, I'm not using. Okay, no offense. I'm not. It's just an example, so don't hold it against me. But let's say you're on Netflix and I'm presenting to you a tile of recommendations. You're not going to feel overly passionate or overly emotional if I present to you. Let's say you're into horror movies and I search for horror movies, and there's a movie you've seen before or you're not really that interested in. You're just going to scroll. It's no big deal. Well, that doesn't apply to us in the sports example. If we have two college teams that you follow and you're passionate about, and we present to you a sports feed, and you have not only your two college teams, but right next to it, the team you hate, which for one reason or another might be in that feed, it produces an emotion. So it's something that, and I'm taking a minute to say this because this is something we had to work with a lot throughout this project. It's not your average feed. It's not your average personalization. You're not recommending books, and if the third tile is a book you don't care about, you slide right by. There's emotion and there's passion attached to this. So that's part of the problem scenario we had to deal with when producing this product. So right. So the goal here, build a personalization engine, understand what the reader cares about, and then without narrowing the world. So what does that mean? Let's go back to the two college teams example. We know people are passionate. We don't want to deliver the wrong content. We don't want to send the wrong message. At the same time, we can't build an echo chamber. I can't just take your two favorite teams, you pass them in to me, and I give you back a reverse chrono list of the latest content for that team. That doesn't work, right? If you're an NFL guy with your favorite team to two NFL teams and it's mid-March, there's not much content there. So part of the problem was we need to figure out a way to add editorially curated content that's relevant, that you're going to care about, as well as maybe some trending and viral content that the world says, hey, this stuff is relevant. You might care about it. You might want to see this. And then do that in a way that doesn't upset you. So, right. So here's kind of where we ended up. Here's a quick example, quick mock-up. This isn't exactly a picture of our feed, but you get the idea, right? So you pass in your request to us, and we put together a personalized feed of your favorite team's content plus editorially curated stuff. And then we also find clever ways to stitch in and add stuff like trending content and viral content. So we do that based on a number of factors. For example, depending on how many favorite teams you have, if you have a very few favorite teams, right? The probability that you're going to get a lot of content for that one team is great. So what we'll do is we'll stitch in more trending content to fill those gaps, right? Maybe a little more editorial content as well. If you have a lot of favorite teams, the probability you're going to get a bunch of content stacked about the same team back to back is a little lower. So we'll stitch in trending content with different algorithms. And not only that, but there's also a lot of algorithmic stuff in here for freshness, for relevance, for your historical preferences and stuff you saw and read in the past and interacted with. So that all gets taken into account when producing these feeds. Right, so, okay, two problems. Number one is your audience, and we've addressed that. Now let's go and talk about architecture a little bit. So every feed starts unique to the fan, right? So one issue we had here is, we've all been in this game for a few years now, I'm guessing, everybody here in the room. Typically, when we produce these products for high volume, high consumption, caching, stuff like that is a huge part of our strategy. We build these products with caching in mind. Caching is key, caching is king, right? Well, this project produced a new challenge for us. We couldn't really cache anything here. Every feed request, anytime you open the app and request that feed, it's a function invocation. It's an application invocation. I can't do a GET request. I can't say, hey, this guy's favorite teams are these two teams. Show me a feed, and then cache that feed and repeat that on the next request. Why? Well, because there's the personalized aspect to it. My feed is different than your feed. Monday, 9 a.m., we both have the same two teams. We're going to get different feeds back because if we both request the same feed at the same time, I have to add my historical context to that feed. Likewise, you'd have to add yours. So if I read a lot of UFC articles and I have no UFC favorite teams, I'm going to get back a feed that's reflective of my favorite teams plus some UFC. You might be reading a lot of golf content, so even though we have the two favorite teams, same two teams, you might get back a feed with some golf content added to that. So caching was an issue. The solution there was something new to us, and we worked Memento on this. And, I was a little worried at first. You're talking to a guy who's got a white beard and been doing some internet stuff for a few years. And, what do you mean we're not caching everything? And we're serving a fresh invocation on each request. How's that going to work? Well, we looked at the Memento functions. We worked with the team on this product they were proposing to us, and it worked out really well. It's been really good, and we're pretty impressed with it. So quick request lifecycle here, give you a quick overview. And when you open the app, your request goes to a computed edge application at Fastly. We do some normalization there. We set algorithm preferences there. We do things like, for example, for these algorithms at the moment, I'll skip to the next one, Memento functions, right? So our Fastly app calls Memento function. It sets the preferences you want. For example, give me 20% relevance and 30% freshness and 20% history preference. Put the feed together. So as we're doing stuff like that in testing, we realize, well, we can't use a static algorithm, for example. We can't use a static percentage of preferences because every time you refresh the feed, if you get the same exact feedback, it kind of feels like it's broken, feels a little stale. So that was weird. So we do things at the edge like we support lists of weighted preferences. So we'll insert a dynamic list that way, things like that. So after that, we make the request Memento. They look up the vector stuff in the database. We publish all our content to a vector database. We run through an embedding model, put it in an open search vector database. And we not only publish our content, but we bring in stuff from social media. So we follow all the teams' X accounts. We put their data in there. Stuff comes in from Instagram. So there's a lot of data there. And then that's what produces the personalized feed at the end. We take that feed back and we just get a raw list of metadata from Memento. We take that and we go to our GraphQL engine on our side and get the content out of our CMS. Now there's some caching we can do there, but it's still a feed request. It's still an invocation every time for every user at Memento. So that was different. That was challenging. Okay, so we got the feed. You got your content. It's personalized. We're done, right? Cerveza time? Go home? Well, no. So now problem number 2, which actually we didn't really think about that much at the beginning because problem number 1 was so big. We're like, well, how do we solve this? Okay, so now we got the feed, things are working, we're relatively happy. Well, now there's problem number 2. You're consuming the feed and you're interacting with it. But we have this real-time feedback loop where as you interact with the feed, we want to know what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're interacting with, implicitly and explicitly, right? There's implicit signals, impressions, dwells. There's explicit signals, clicks, mutes, full screens. We need to know that. And every time those signals come back, we need to modify your profile so the next time you load the feed, we take that into account. Okay, so now you're not only invoking an application each time, but we're actually posting writes. Tons and tons and tons of write events concurrently. Okay, that's a big problem. How do we do that? All right, well, let's bring back the functions. Hey, Memento, we got this problem. You need you guys to solve it for us. So we use their functions. Again, massive concurrency, thousands and thousands of people looking at these feeds simultaneously, interacting. These events are being emitted. They're being consumed by the functions in real time at scale, and they're write events. They're not just reads. So there's no caching again. So this is a write-heavy, post-heavy architecture, and we use their functions to make that happen. And it was so far it's going really well. It's been pretty successful, so we're pretty happy with it. All right, what we learned, what still excites us? Over personalization, right? So one of the things we learned quickly, and I think I touched on it a little bit, was I can't just take your favorite teams, put them into a search, and send them back to you. You get a very narrow distribution of content, right? And you're not going to know the latest breaking news. You're not going to see viral trending stuff. So we learned quickly we had to figure out how to add color to what you're asking for, and then take into consideration the passion stuff, right? If I'm a fan of University of Florida, I'm a Gator fan, and I like basketball and football, to a computer, to a vector search, Florida State Seminole, Florida State's right next door. It's not far away. It's basketball, it's college, same state. But I recommend you that content. It might not make you too happy. So things like that we had to learn. Cold starts, big problem for us, right? You download the app, you're new, you're not logged in. You just literally just download the app and open it. We don't know anything about you. So cold starts were an interesting issue. Most of you here who've dealt with personalization to any extent probably understand the cold start problem, so won't spend too much on that. Breaking news freshness. Even though it might not be highly relevant, breaking news and things that are very recent are pretty important. Again, right, sounds simple, no problem. Something's breaking news, we'll put it at the top of the feed. Doesn't always work. It might not be too relevant to you, and we touched on earlier, because we don't want to serve a stale, repetitive feed, we have a dynamic list of algorithm preferences that we serve every time you load your feed. You might get a ranking algorithm that prefers relevance way over recency, just as something happens to break. So that's a challenge we have to look into, right? How important is this one piece of news compared to, or just treated as some random piece of content? So that was something we struggle with and we still talk about a lot. Editorial balance, the same, right? The editorial team, the people that write the content, they're pretty opinionated that it's really important content because they wrote it. So, they want to keep their thumb on the scale. They want to have their stuff at the top of the feed. And we always have to look for a balance of, how does that play with your feed and the relevance and the stuff you're here looking for? If I'm a college football guy, but it's Masters season and our guys are publishing a lot of golf content, how much golf content do you put at the top of my feed? I may not care about golf, right? So there's always a balance there. And then measurement. I think echoing, was it Zach, I believe, talking about logs, the number of logs you produce. Yeah. So tons of logs, tons of analyze, tons of storage. This was a new project, right? This is something that we started building in August of last year. It wasn't a feature to an existing system, right? It wasn't something we just added on. So there was no infrastructure, there was nothing ready for this. So we had to build a lot of stuff and build it from scratch. And the log analysis tools were a big part of it. The logging for this application is excellent. Memento did a big piece of that. They were a huge part of that lift. So yeah, better measurement for sure. A lot of data, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of people to analyze it and then act on those decisions. So a lot of A/B testing, a lot of load testing. Yeah, lots of lessons there. So I'll close with this, right? Good quote here. A poem is never finished, only abandoned. Personalization feels similar. There's no final version of this, right? We keep tuning, we keep A/B testing, we keep load testing, we keep learning things. And our customers are really good at telling us when we're not doing it right. So we listen to them a lot. There's a lot of feedback, and mostly the squeaky wheels get the grease. So right? There's an old saying in IT, if you guys are old, the phone never rings when everything's going right. Well, so yeah. And to echo on something Josh said, I think, I want to take a minute. I would be remiss if I didn't take a second to really thank Kwaja, Jason, Lionel, and the whole Memento team for your help with this project. It's fantastic. Good work.